Have you ever stubbornly resisted the truth that was right in front of your face? Well, today's guest, Blue June, shares an interesting story of being surrounded by psychics and clairvoyants and astrologers and still refusing to wake up to her witchy side. Join us for a fun interview with an amazing lady.
Soul Nectar Show. The Soul Nectar Show. You're invited, delighted to discover who you are. Anything is possible if you believe. So join us on this beautiful journey. Soul Nectar Show. Soul Nectar Show.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Soul Nectar Show, that show where we talk about all things essence, where we gather around the campfire and we share our stories of connection to that which is bigger than us, to, the great mystery, to great spirit, the divine, God, source, creator, universe, whatever your name is for it. And we share our mystical stories, our tales of ascension and awakening and our realizations. And we have a lot of fun discussions on this show about all things essence. And, I'm your host, Carrie Hummingbird. I love having these discussions and I really love the journey. It's just the most best thing that ever happened to me is waking up and having, this realizations after realization after realization. And I love to guide people on their own journey, whether you've already begun and you're like, well, I've already got a lot of experience and I know a lot of things. And so I don't really need this. I love you especially. Because there's always more to learn, and so I love helping you get to the next place above that plateau. And if you're just starting and you're like, well, I don't really know, about this spirit thing and I don't really believe it, I love you too, because skeptics are my friend. Atheists, I have really good time with atheists because when they get that awakening, it's awesome. It's like the best juice ever. So come on board and try it out. And today I have a wonderful guest who I just adore, like instant adoration. Welcome, everybody.
Something.
Blue June.
Hi.
Hi. So I'm going to tell you about Blue because she's amazing. So Blue is a New York City-based clairsentient tarot reader who has been a professional reader for nearly 10 years, who teaches tarot, yet she will always remain a committed student to her craft. Blue is the enthusiastic host of Magic and Divination Driven Mystic Witch podcast, and I will put a link to my interview on Blue's podcast. We had a great discussion there about White Eagle. You can follow her on Instagram and Facebook at Blue June Tarot for daily tarot readings for the collective. Blue's classes in her craft have been written about in Vogue. Congratulations. Cosmo, Teen Vogue, Vice, Nylon, InStyle, Bust, and the New Yorker. And, so I feel very honored and privileged to be here with Blue because as soon as we met, we're like, you're like my sister.
Yes, I feel that way too. It's so funny to hear you read like my press because it sounds so different to hear it from someone else. You're like, oh,
I'm
I'm a
like,
big deal.
pretty stunning, actually.
I did some stuff. I did a few things. That's pretty cool.
I was having like envy when I saw that. I was like, wow, how'd she get into Vogue? I was like, that's so cool.
It's because I live in New York and it's really easy to know the right people to like whatever you want to do.
It's
You
all
can,
who you know.
it really is. Every business is like that. Unfortunately, so is ours.
Ours. Your trip has not been this way. Like the whole time. You have not always been open to this. As a matter of fact, you had a little thing I call stubbornness, dragon, and
Yeah.
you were dragged a little bit kicking and screaming into this path. And
Yeah. I would say dragon is definitely the right word too, because really just like not having it. I was not having it for a really long time. And in fact made fun of all of this stuff adamantly. And yet still attracted spiritual people pretty much exclusively as friends, lovers, all of it. And just my whole life, I've always been surrounded by spiritual people. And I'm like, y'all are
like, you people are crazy.
And I have to say, like, I'm very, very, very lucky that a lot of those people are still my friends and have actually given me very little hard time about my total 180.
Which
Because
is nice.
it was really only about 8 years ago when I started learning and was like, wait a minute.
This is
Wait,
what you guys are trying to invite me to?
are
What?
you kidding me? There's something to all of this whole time. Yeah. My life is a long series of lessons in humility. As an Aries with a Leo rising, I think that's like part of the karma I signed on for in this lifetime. Yeah, but it's been a journey. It has. It's definitely been a journey.
Well, stubbornness is rampant, in our world. And as I was just telling you, 2020 as I learned from my teachers at the Power Path, the trends forecast for 2020, we've got the stubbornness dragon is really with us all year long. So, and the skeptical quality, like, I'm not sure I believe you, what are you talking about?
Yeah. I'm
So
here for it, to be
you
honest.
understand that. You
I
really get that.
do. I do. I do. And I have a lot of compassion for those folks. And I'm just like, oh, you're gonna be so surprised. You'll get there. You'll get there. And I love anyone who is attracted to me in that sense. I do attract a lot of those types of clients. And I love that they come to me because I can be like, sensitive with that and you know, I help facilitate hopefully some sort of beginning for them, hopefully.
So how does somebody know that they're sort of in a stubbornness place? I mean, because people may not be aware of that
No, I don't
I
think
just
people
think
do.
like I just know what I
I really
know
think
and
that you're right. It's super ego driven. Not that the ego is all bad, but we do tend to go a little too far. The power of the mind is insane. Like, you can convince yourself of anything. We're very delusional. So if we're sure, that's it. We're sure. And that's the truth to us at that time. Ooh, sorry. I live in New York City,
yeah,
so
we have New York City in the background, which is, that's just what it
it's
is.
part of Mystic Witch too. It's just like the J Train is the star of the show. It's not about me.
Yeah. Well, you're not going to control that, that's for sure. Isn't that part of the journey though, is like realizing like part of waking up for me was realizing, oh, there's something bigger than me that's making all of this happen. And I'm actually delusional if I think I'm controlling it. Like I'm not.
Yeah, to think that I actually have a say. Well, you do to a certain extent. We have free will, of course. That brings up like the age-old argument of fate versus free will. And you talk about fate and destiny in separate terms, which I'd love to hear more about, how they're different things. But I kind of call them the same thing when I'm explaining to clients that there's like a trifecta of energy flow. You have destiny and fate here. Even if they're different, they're still kind of together there. And then you have your free will over here. And then over here, we have just chaos. Just chaos. And so this is why what I'm explaining to my clients at that time is that this is why outcomes in tarot shift over time. So I don't like to go too far ahead. Like, I'm not trying to tell you your whole future. That's no, thank you. That's a lot.
Oh, I love that you just said that, because what that really brings up for me is that, one time I was doing this plant medicine journey. I talk a lot about plant medicine. One time I was doing this plant medicine journey and I was like at the top of this big rise, and I was looking down over the southwest landscape with all the mesas and everything, right? And I was looking down into the valley, and everything was shifting and turning when I was in my heart. Like it was like thousands of little wheels, like turning, 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 and like they're all like turning together, and they're all like in this vibration and all moving along just happily to this music that I couldn't really hear, but I knew it was like all synchronized, right? And I was like, wow, that's really cool. And then anytime I went into a thought tunnel, it would all stop and I would go down into darkness, and I would be like, oh, wow, I'm really depressed, or like, oh, I got to look at that awful thing. And then I would come back up. I would go, okay, I'm done with that. Go ahead and play again. And then everything would start to play out there again. It would all move and dance and sing and all that. So it was like a spirit message to me, like, this little cosmic dance is always happening, always connecting, and always variable. With every choice you make, it adjusts itself. And all the thousand millions of billions of moving parts, being like all the billions of people on the planet, and all of your billions of decisions every day, adjust this mechanism of synchronicity out there in the world. And we can choose to be in our thought tunnel and completely ignore the whole thing if we want.
Yeah. It kind of goes back to what you were saying about the stubbornness, though, too, because I think spiritual people live in a state of sort of more acceptance, to be honest. We can see what the universe is trying to tell us. There's always these synchronistic signs, like, oh, I'm seeing this time over and over, right? Like every receipt I have is the same amount. You know, we can follow the clues, I think, and we're more open to understanding that we're being told that the path is shifting a little bit, and we're like, oh, okay, got it. And I actually think that gives us an advantage in not getting stuck in those thought tunnels, not getting stuck in that depression, because we're not like resisting change all the time. We're kind of like open and accepting to it. Does that make sense?
It does. And 2020 is a huge year of change, as I'm sure you've already in your work seen. Tell us about what you know about all the change in 2020.
So I actually haven't really done very many year ahead readings yet. Usually that happens because everything in New York moves so fast. So people will be wanting those readings right at the beginning of the year. Like it's the new year, I better look into the year ahead. But the ones that I have seen actually they have a story of release. They have a story of a lot of healing, and it could coincide with the stubbornness factor. Because I do feel like a certain amount of acceptance can be very healing, but mostly it's looking a lot better to me. Like it looks.
Well, if you've been doing your work, I think it looks great.
I think globally too, like the collective. Honestly, I do.
Really? Like the whole collective, even the stubborn ones who are like, no, I'm not going to come along. No, I'm not going to believe.
Yes, because I feel like as a 4-year, I think it's going to offer a little bit more harmony than what we've been seeing, even politically, like not just in our country, everywhere. So I think like we're going to see like a little more flow, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think so. I think, what's really interesting about this is that the big element this coming year also is Earth. And so Earth is about, well, I teach Earth spirituality. So like I've been seeing a surgence of people interested in this topic, like joining my Facebook group, like really a lot. Like every day I've got all these requests to join, which is surprising because I'm not doing anything to promote it. So I was like, well, what's that happening? And I realized because when we all connecting with Earth consciousness, which is like that synchronistic thing I was telling you about that I saw like as vision, like that's Earth. Earth is constantly like connecting everything together that needs to be connected, right? And all the decisions we make change the matrix of that connection, but it's constantly adjusting and doing that for us. When you're tapped into that and you're connected to it, you get to be part of it, like consciously, right?
Yeah, what a blessing. What an amazing experience. And it's so funny to me to think about how adamantly against understanding this I was, and just what a relief it is to be on this side now. And
So
to be like, oh.
but tell us about your stubbornness. Like when you were being stubborn, what were some of the things you were thinking? Because I know people were kind of putting this in your path quite a bit. Like they were already doing this work, you were attracted to it. Tell us a little bit more, go deeper on that story.
So I've always been really interested in horoscopes. I've always believed in that. I never really understood like a natal chart or like, that the planets were all somewhere when you're born, right? But I did understand on some level, that was the one thing that I was not resistant to. And so I did attract a lot of astrologers, but they wanted to talk about like all this other stuff, the energy and really at the end of the day, now that's my biggest obsession is the energy, because that's what it all comes back to with my spell work, with my abilities, with my gift, any spirits that I'm working with, personally or for other people. It's like, it's everything. It all comes back to energy. And it's also how I can bring those two people together, the spiritual people and the skeptics. And I was definitely on the skeptic side of things until I started to understand finally on, I don't even remember what it was that made things click, but I just started to understand that even though it's not quantifiable, the things that we know are true, because we've seen too much proof. It's not even a belief, it's a fact to us. Like, there are correlations where you can bring those two things together. And that's when things started to change for me, when I was like, oh, maybe it's not as quantifiable, but there is proof and there is scientific evidence to back up these ideas. And now that I've, all these years later, it's like, sorry,
No,
there's
don't.
there's an emergency every 30 seconds. I live on Broadway, which is the busiest street in America. So plus we have the train right outside, above ground train. It's fun, right?
Yeah, but you know what I love about it is that it's a perfect example of billions of moving parts all coexisting within a very small space.
It's really true, because Manhattan is not that big. Brooklyn's pretty big, but my goodness, there's so many of us. And the energy is just, even without all of us, the energy here is so electric. And that's, I think, why people are like, yeah, I'm going to get stuff done. I'm going to like follow my dreams. I'm going to like do stuff. And there are so many opportunities because everyone is kind of functioning at that high level. All these positive ions are popping off everywhere. It's like really insane. That's why you see my Himalayan pink salt lamp is very important. I also have a little diffuser with a noise machine right here. And I need these things to survive here.
Well, to calm down, actually, that's really surprising because that's not what I made an assumption. I made an assumption because I am very empathic, as I think you are too. And I was like, oh, I don't know that I ever want to live with that many people, because I think I would be overwhelming with all their stuff. Like if they were really depressed or they weren't feeling good or they were like, that I'm going to be soaking all that up,
You do. You do. You have to practice really good psychic hygiene here. You don't have a choice, especially if you're doing the work and it's like your full-time living. Oh yeah, you're taking spiritual baths, you're getting diffusers and noise machines, you're cuddling up with your kitty cat, you're doing all the things. Like you have to really be, I would say, the structure required. It's probably how I learned how to get my life organized. I had to. And I'm an Aries, like structure, routine, that stuff, schedules, that's not my strong suit. But honestly, that's something I had to learn, because you have to protect yourself, you have to cleanse. And I go to see practitioners all the time. As you know, I like to collect psychics as friends, but also healers as well. And it's so necessary to support them and get their business, because you have to really stay on top of it, or you can go mad. Like there are major consequences. It can drive you crazy, or you'll just be going through shamanic death after shamanic death and not understand why. You don't have to take every challenge on at once. That's an important thing I think all spiritual people should recall, especially since you and I feel still this sense of urgency because we're playing catch up. Like we talked about before, our memories were wiped, and so we could fully immerse in the human experience.
Woohoo!
Right. Yeah. Like, oh, super dumb. Don't remember any of that. That's a bunch of mumbo jumbo. I don't believe it, and now there's like this like sense of urgency. So we do tend to bite off more than we can chew. We want to read all the books. We want to learn all the things and take all the classes. But it's like kind of that stubbornness even there. There's evidence of it even there. So just slowing down, which is also not something I'm good at. But like I'm creating this space, the lamp creates negative ions, which I hate that they're called that because it makes it sound like they're bad, but they they make it neutral, and it makes the space feel more calm. And when outside there's all these little ants doing millions of things, you really need to like bring it in, bring it back.
Bring it back. Yeah. That's what I love about this is that I started realizing that every single person is projecting their energy and their thoughts out into the world. And I realized that I was empathic, so I started realizing I'm kind of like being a sponge of that. So then I started having deeper awareness of that to go, oh, so if I go to the mall, for example, because the most packed place I have around me is the mall. If I go to the
I
mall
have to
and
say,
then
I kind of miss malls.
I know
Very convenient.
malls, if I go to the mall and I leave there not feeling well, well, I know that that's because I just went to a place where there's a lot of people projecting their psychic energy without any realization of how they're doing it or that they're even doing it. And I just picked it all up. Then I have to cleanse my energy field. So I started noticing it there and then realizing, oh gosh, I need to be discerning. I need to know who I am in truth. That, like, the more you know who you are in truth and you connect back into all of those memories and the recollections and your whole soul being, right? The more you connected that, the less you're affected by all the people out there, and they could be exactly as they are and it doesn't bother you. But while you're on the journey to get to that place, it really bothers you a lot, right? I mean, it's very disturbing.
So there's an exercise that I give my clients and students. I attract a lot of people who are just on the brink of going from skeptic to spiritual. And so do you, right? Like,
Oh,
that's
yeah.
kind of like our purpose. That's what we do. And so, of course, that's who comes to us because that's our job. And so I give everyone this really, really nice, quick, really quick cleanse that you can do. I'm sure you've heard it before. And it's just, feet flat on the floor, spine straight, just draw white light from the heavens through your crown chakra. You shove it through. I love to make it sound like it's gross. You just grind it through. But really, it should just be like a nice flow. You know how I am with, like, let's make it sound as gross as possible. So no, it's a nice flow, and you're aligning your chakras. You're making sure they're evenly spaced. They're all the same size, and just aligning them. Then you flush through your organs, flush through all your cells, through your skin, get all of the space around you. And one thing I like to tell people is, like, to think of their aura as a sphere that goes as high up as their fingertips and that same height or length below them and all the way around, right? Just flush it all through, back out your root chakra, and then I actually like to cap it off with, like, anything that I'm feeling drawn to at the time. Sometimes it's candle wax. I have a client who likes to use feathers. I'm like, sure, great. Yeah, do it. Another one said, I'm going to use chainmail. And I was like, great. Yes, whatever feels
Yeah. You're
what you
picking up that
do.
vibration, but cool.
Yeah. I usually use opalite because I just think it's pretty.
It is
So,
pretty.
yeah, and, like, that's something that I wouldn't obviously do it when you're driving, because it's probably not safe to, like, close your eyes. And it's a lot easier to do closing your eyes, but on the train, it's really handy. I've actually felt energy leave the space and, like, open my eyes and people were gone. And the energy, I felt it shift during the exercise. So it can be really, really useful. And you can shift it too. Like, it doesn't have to just be for cleansing. You can also use it for protection. You can use it, just to, like, kind of like create a block for one specific person. You can really shift the intention for it. So that's helpful.
Yeah, so opening that channel can be, I think part of the stubbornness that people encounter is that if they're already feeling like subconsciously, if they're already sort of aware, like, oh, I don't want to be open because I'm already overwhelmed by people. I don't want to be more open. But you have to kind of get through that part in order to get into the space where you do open your channel and you get your downloads. So what's the benefit of this? Like, you get your information, like you get your soul guidance. That's why you want to really open up your channels, because you want to be clear and get your own guidance and not be confused or in doubt anymore, or, be in the dark tunnels. You want to kind of get into the light again, into your own light, so you can be clear about what's your next steps are, right? So you have to go through that
Absolutely.
fear of that part.
Absolutely. But I try not to be too pushy because I know how I was not receptive for so long. And I don't want to waste my energy on that. you know? I also think that you're drawn to this stuff when you're drawn to it. So let's say you're in the mood for a reading, you're in the mood to give that a chance. Doesn't necessarily mean you're in the mood or ready to do all these upgrades.
To go like on a crazy ayahuasca jungle journey.
Just because you and I worked that way, we were like, oh, let me do everything.
Just jump right in, immerse. Yeah.
It's like both feet in, ready to go. I think that people have to kind of come to it on their own. So I try not to be too pushy, but I'm like, I'll be here when you're ready.
When you're ready. So how did you remember you do a lot of spells. I heard you mention spells and things like that. And that's another journey that people get leery of. It's like, oh, well, I don't want to do anything bad or attract anything evil or
We
like
could talk about this
all of
all
that
day.
stuff. Like, how
We
did
could talk
you?
about this all day. All day. And like, we should have other people call in. We should hear a lot of different perspectives from people on different paths. We could literally talk about this for a whole week straight. I don't want to do anything bad. I'll try to be concise. I don't want to do anything bad. Now, I have to say, spell work is tricky when it comes to that statement. You never really know how it's going to work. An example, I was trying to get a client's family member to pay them back, and they passed away. And it was the exact amount they owed that was in the inheritance for this person.
Wow.
Now, they had cancer. They were already on their last leg. Who knows if I did that? But it weighs on my conscience. And there is always this thing in the back of my mind, like, what do I have to pay for that? Like, what do I owe for it? So I'm really cautious since that was like in my early days, like experimenting, like, yes, and frog's eyes and toad's tails. Like, toads don't have tails. But let's try it all. Let's do everything. Also very ignorant to a lot of cultural appropriation at the time. I was like, I'll just learn every practice. And so, I'm glad that I've slowed down to think about things a little bit more. But I don't want to do anything bad. I mean, then don't do spell work. That's honestly how I feel, because I don't believe in like the ×3. It's so unspecific. That phrase is so specific. You know what I'm talking about? Like, whatever you put out comes back to you ×3. It's like this old Wiccan. Well, Wicca's not that old, but it's this like saying that kind of it stemmed from that there will be consequences. I definitely do believe in karma. I don't think it's instant. I think sometimes you wait lifetimes upon lifetimes before you have to pay, right, for something. But if you are worried about doing something bad, it's such a complex thing that is very unquantifiable, at least for now, then don't do magic. Don't do it.
It is a sticky area. I mean, even now that I know I'm an older soul, now that I remember, what I found is that we argue with reality a lot. Like, we argue with it. We're like, well, this shouldn't be happening, so I'm going to do something to make it stop happening because it shouldn't be happening.
Because we're like, justice.
Yeah, but actually maybe it should be happening. Maybe that's exactly what you need, like, in order to grow. Like, it shouldn't have happened that my dad died a couple years ago, right? Like, he just died of fluke from a cold, from a pneumonia, like, bam.
I'm so sorry.
Like, in 2 days. It shouldn't have happened. If I take that attitude, it shouldn't have happened, then I lose out on all the growth that I've actually had since he left. Because he left, I was leaning on him a lot, and I didn't even realize how much I was leaning on him, right? Like, I was like very entitled. I was still like a spoiled little girl. Like, I was not growing into my maturity. So should he have left? Well, I think now at a soul level, I see, yes, actually, this was part of the plan, because I needed to get my own feet on the ground and really like build my family together, right? So if we argue with reality and we say, well, it shouldn't have happened, then are we really learning what's in front of us?
That's a really good point. And it brings us back to the acceptance that we were talking about
Yeah.
before. I mean, you can limit yourself by deciding those types of things, which is not our job. It's also not our job to seek justice on behalf of someone else. But we're going to take on those roles. It's like I justify it to myself in the sense that I'm not going to just sit around and watch things happen. I'm going to pray and light this candle and ask for something else. That's what I'm going to do, because I'm not just going to be complacent and accept things as they are. No, that's not the world I want to live in. That's not the person I want to be. That's not the example I want to set. In fact, complacency makes me feel nauseous. It makes me feel sick to my stomach. So I don't accept it. I'm just going to sit back and watch the earth get destroyed and not do anything? Come on. No.
Yeah, so there's like a fine line, right? Like there's like a way that we're called into action, right? Like we see something out in the world and it calls us forth into a new place. Like it calls us, like 9/11. 9/11 called all of us into a new action stance. Like it called us forth. Like what kind of people are we going to be? Now, arguably the way that we collectively took it was we had multiple choices of how to evolve from that experience, right? We could have taken that experience and evolved in a totally different way.
Yeah.
We collectively chose to bring it to more war and more, hunting and all that. We could have chosen a whole different way of seeing things. So I think in any opportunity, we have an ability to take that experience and consciously co-create with that experience what we do desire. So I don't think it's about being complacent. I think as a matter of fact, we're complacent. We're just sort of like lying back on the mountaintop and letting it all happen. That's not exactly right either.
Well, the collective, you're super right about that. But we have a choice. I feel like a lot of people are being complacent about the direction things did go. Like that needs to be discussed more. You know what I mean? The other day, here's a good example. The other day I posted on Facebook, and I don't get a lot of comments on there anymore. Barely any of my friends use it. And I just use it to share memes and like songs and like stuff, whatever. And I usually get like 10 likes, whatever. No one said anything on this post about Goldman Sachs agreeing. Alaska begged them not to fund this fracking. And they agreed, that's historic. That's like the first time a bank has ever been like, you know what, you're right.
Yeah, it's wrong to frack. Like
Yes, yeah, it's wrong to frack. I love that. Frack. So basically they agreed, and I was like, if anyone has wondered why I've said for the last 20 years I don't use banks for political reasons, this is the reason why. And this is a day late and a dollar short, if you ask me. You guys need to start voting with your money. Vote with your dollar. And it's disappointing. I was not surprised when like a few days later I went to look at that post, and I was like, of course nobody even liked it. Of course no one even, who knows, it may have gotten buried in the algorithm. But I also feel like I'm the only person I know who's like, vote with your money. Anyway, like I think that bringing it back to the complacency thing, I think that we have choices, and I just wish people like would take more time to think about what they can do.
Well, and also I think that there's this it's different understandings about what is God, right?
Sure.
So if you still think God is up there in the clouds and going to come down and do it for you, like God's just going to bring his hand down and just fix it all for you, and just, if you still of that paradigm, yeah, you're probably going to sit back and say, well, nothing I can do. I'm just a person. I can't do anything to fix it. I got to wait for God to fix it. Well, Okay, that's the old paradigm. Okay, the new paradigm is, oh, God's in here and works through this. Okay, so like, like I have to let God come through me as me to do the action in the world that needs done.
Yeah,
And that's what you've got to really wrestle with that free will. You got to wrestle with it. Like, and the egoic self that has that free will, like to go along or not to go along.
I agree. I agree. And it's funny too, because I'm contradicting myself. I realize the irony, and I'm saying, like, we have to be more accepting to find peace and tranquility. And now I'm like, politics. Ah! Like,
Yeah, but
it's,
both are true at the same time, Blue. That's really, we have to hold it all, right? Like, we have to know when to accept and when to take action.
yeah, that's the responsibility of existing in this time, I think, for anyone.
So how does it help? Like, you've learned how to open up this channel that you have. You've learned how to use the tarot. You've learned how to do other things. How does that help a person to discern? Like, is it a time to accept or is it a time to take an action?
Honestly, it's the tarot is just a tool, as you know. It's not magic or anything. It's really my spirits doing the work. It's not even me. I'm just a conduit, really, at the end of the day. um, it's hard still, even with that guidance, because I have like a lesson, a lifelong lesson in ego death, I believe. um I know it's true. I've done my numerology, and it's very true.
What does that
Because,
mean to you? What does that mean, ego death, to you?
so when you're so sure that you're going to get your client their money back, and you're so sure that you make the spell work, but someone dies, and you have to go, oh, I should think about this a little bit more. Maybe there's some stuff I don't know. And so that's what I mean. Like, your whole life is that, like, going, like, saying something terrible to someone and then being like, oh, I'm a monster. So of course I'm hopefully healed from those behaviors, hopefully. I
Well, it's a work in progress, isn't it? I mean, we're
Right.
all works in progress.
And not that there's not challenges all the time in those things, but I'm like, no, that's old self. We're not doing that. No, we're not. We're going to think about this first. So it's like, of course I've learned a lot and I gained a lot, but it's still, I'm always going to be facing the next tier of those challenges, plus like other challenges that like everyone has to go through. Like, what is it that makes success? What is it that makes, how can I attract money? How can I attract the right people? How do I attract better experiences? All of those normal challenges, right? How does it help? Maybe it doesn't. I feel like, I mean, not that I'm ungrateful. How does it really help? I don't really use those things for myself. I'm here for the work,
Yeah.
if that makes
So it's
sense.
just how it expresses through you. It's your tool that you use to, but people can learn a lot from Oracle games. I mean, I remember when I was getting started on my journey, you know, I was amazed when I would ask a question of some Oracle deck and then I would pull my little 3 cards and go, oh, this is right on. Oh my God. Like, it was a lot of validation. Like,
I'm
oh
gonna
my,
be honest with you. I'm still like that. Like, every reading I do.
it's
And I do
crazy,
this
I
all the
think.
time. I'm
It's
like,
like
I can't
amazing.
make this stuff up. That's what I always say. I can't make this stuff up. And I love that you brought up Oracle cards, because when I do a longer reading for someone and we have like 2 minutes left and they don't really have any other questions, it happens a lot. Like, because I talk really fast and I say a lot of stuff in a short period of time. They're like, you kind of covered everything. I don't like have anything else. I'm like, let's just bust out these Oracle cards and see what they say. Every time they reiterate the reading we just had.
So amazing to me. So amazing. I love it. I actually just created my own game. I think I told you that, the
Oh, yeah.
Love Mastery game, which is like, it's working. I was surprised. I was like, wow. So I just followed the intuition, right? I just did. I was like, oh, okay, make this. Oh, okay, yeah, okay. Oh, put this on there. Oh, okay, sure. And, did the game with my friend Jean Berry, who makes games. So she helped me guide me through it. If you want to make your own game, I'll connect you guys. But
Yes.
he's
I,
like, I
I
think
need
you
to
should
play
have
yours.
you need to have your own game too. So, I think games are a fun way to get into this whole spirit conversation for the skeptics out there, for people that are like, I don't know about any of this, is bull crap or whatever. Like, seriously, these games will prove it to you that it's not. Like, there's some synchronicity to it. There's like alignment to it. It's not just your brain making up a story. It's like, it will actually thud you over the head with it if you are stubborn. Like,
Yeah.
it'll be like, oh, you think this is just, how about this? Bam! And it's like spot on to your challenge.
It's so exciting that it can still be so amazing to us. Like you don't get over that. And the
No.
reason why is because spirit comes through you. And I think this is why people get nervous, because they feel that chill and that, like, oh my gosh, right? And I think that's why people sometimes get the idea that these things are evil. But honestly, a little guidance, who doesn't need a little guidance? And if it comes in the form of a game, I'm in. Let's do it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, make it easy, make it fun.
It's
Yeah,
fun.
God bumps. Those are called God bumps in my world. I don't know. Like the shivers,
Ah,
bumps. I was like, whoa, that was important.
yes, 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 yes. Yes, God bumps. I've never heard it put that way. I hate the term goose pimples. No,
I
thank
don't
you.
know.
Have you
That's
ever heard
not
that?
God
Oh,
bumps. Yeah.
I wonder if it's like an Eastern thing, maybe.
I just get jolted now. Like my inner shaman just goes, it just like jolts me constantly. So people are always like, "Are you okay?" I'm like, "Yeah, I'm just getting jolted." There apparently is something
Just
in there.
feel lightning bolts down my spine. No big deal.
Apparently having trouble getting through to me, so has to jolt me. So, well, this has been really, I could go on with you forever. We have a few more minutes. So what else what else do you want to share to like the skeptic or the person who's like a little stubborn or they think, oh, well, Blue June, you're just special. You're just so special and you're
I
the
love
one.
I love that sentence, but it's just not
Only
true.
you can do this because you're just special. I can't do all that stuff. That's not me. Not intuitive, but you are.
What would I say to them?
Yeah.
Well, thank you for
Thank you.
saying that. I am a Leo rising, so I even though I take compliments really poorly, I love them. I'm always like, thank you. Like that's how I literally respond.
Leo
I'm
is
like,
like, of course. Yeah, sure.
oh, thank you so much. Like
The
I
Leo in me
sometimes
is saying
experience in
yes.
the West. Like I'll be like, oh, honey, it's better to be looked over than overlooked. Like I don't even. But what would I say to them? Take your time, be gentle with yourself. Don't push yourself too hard. Life is already really hard. Um, and maybe just be quiet, because I'm never quiet, but when I am, that's when I open up, and that's when my butthole unclenches.
Yeah,
Um,
that is such a thing. It's totally
it
a
is
thing.
really a thing. That is
It's a thing.
really a thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. And just like you slow down long enough to see some things from a different perspective. Just being open, quiet. Get quiet.
Get quiet. Too many thinking. When I think I told you when my guide White Eagle came into me and he would stand behind me and the psychics would all see him with his hands like this and he'd be like, too many thinking. To say he gave everybody that message for me.
I love that. Why are you sorry?
Because my brain is like, I mean, I'm definitely a product of Western culture.
Yeah.
My brain is very active. And, for
Yeah.
anybody else who's out there, I know it's like it's torturous sometimes, right? Like it just won't be quiet sometimes. And so I've had to learn how to like really let it all go on the inside. Like it's actually a skill I've cultivated in letting the thinking go and it's just filling up with breath. I mean, I couldn't even explain how I do it now, but I just, when I notice I'm in that overthinking space now, I just kind of go, I just, maybe I just push the light out like you were talking about. Like I just kind of like go, okay, light. Like
Yeah.
I try to just become a little child that, that innocence of a little child that doesn't have to worry about anything.
Yeah.
I try to become that like, again.
Yeah. I love that. I also, there's another trifecta I talk about where you become your own mother, you become your own father, and the inner child, and like the healing and harmony between the three of them. So that's kind of what that makes me think of. Uh, yeah, I love that.
Or like a cat in the sun, since I'm looking at your kitty, like anytime I get too worked up, I try to imagine, because I know what it feels like, that lazy feeling when you see your cat lying in a window with the sunlight coming in, and I've had that experience, like let's say at the beach or something, where I was just lying in the sun and relaxing and kind of went into the ethers and went into like the zony space. I try to like tap into that and then become that for a little while and just kind of go, okay, everything's okay. Actually, I can unclench my butt. Like I love that you said that because it's such a thing. I can unclench it, I can relax, and I can just breathe and open up space inside of myself.
Yeah, I mean, that's the easiest way to ground and get centered is to literally touch the ground and connect to nature. That's like, I think, why we call it grounding, right?
Yeah, that's why we call it that. And you do have some trees in New York City. Are they like highly loved? I mean, like there's not that many for all the people, right?
No, I would say very unloved, most of them. But there are a lot of witches here, and I've named there's all the way around. I live on a corner, and so behind my apartment on the side and on the front, there's trees all the way around. They've all been named. I speak to them. I obviously like let them go through dark time where I don't talk to them, but I literally introduce my guests to the trees when they come over. This is Skittles. This is Cocoa Bean. This one is Star. Star's the big one. She's the mama. She's not really the mama. But yeah, like I would say well loved. Not generally. They have like these tiny little plot holes that they're supposed to become these massive, beautiful things out of. And, they're only cut when they're in the way of wires or train tracks, or have been sick and are falling. That's the only time they're cared for in any way.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, except for me, of course. I'm going out there and like bringing like water and being like, this is for you. And like, I love you. Like burying stuff to like keep them company, little crystals, returning them to earth. That's what you're supposed to do when a crystal breaks. Return it to the earth.
Yeah, and I love that you're doing that because that's actually a teaching, and indigenous practice is to honor the trees and honor the mountains, and make little offerings and say thank you and say prayers and connect, and because they're not inanimate objects. They actually have their own consciousness, and those trees are doing work for so many people. I mean, those trees are clearing energy for like
Yeah.
millions of people right
Yeah.
there.
Some of them, like Star's been here for probably 100 years. She's pretty big. I mean, probably longer. I don't really know. But I've done my due diligence as far as like researching the indigenous peoples of this land, to honor those traditions. And that's actually where I got those ideas from. It wasn't like, luckily, there is a lot of written history about Manhattan and Brooklyn, luckily, because we're a generally new country, so there is history. You can find those things out, but Spirit would have told me
Probably. Yeah, if you open up that channel and you slow down long enough. So, well, that's beautiful. I love that you're incorporating all that into modern day. And that's a really good encouragement for everybody out there. It's like, even if you're in the middle of New York City and there's only like 5 trees for like billions of people, you can connect with that tree, and you can, and actually it would be very helpful if you did. and show it some love and honor the land and honor the people who lived on that land, the ancestors who lived there for a lot longer, honor those traditions. I love that you're doing that. It's gorgeous. You're
Thank you.
such a shining star. So
there I go again, taking compliments.
there, Leo. She's like, yes, Spur. So tell me, how can people get started with you? Like, what's a good way for me? Obviously, your podcast, Mystic Witch, but is there anything else that you want to share with the audience about how they can work with you?
So the podcast is generally focused on other people. I love promoting my colleagues. I love promoting cool stuff that other people are doing. Lots of different practices, paths, like we're talking witches, diviners, all of it. And I love like the supernatural too. So, but it's mostly about other people. I do book phone sessions. So I do have international clients. You can book me through bluejunetarot.com. My name is Blue. A lot of people think my name is June. But yeah, it's blue like the color, June like the month, tarot.com. And there's a booking tab. You can pretty much find out everything about me there. There is literally a tab called About Me. So
that's handy. It's handy to have that tab. So good.
And if you want to see all those articles we talked about earlier, that's also in the press page.
That's awesome. Okay, I want to go check it out. Well, that is cool. Well, thank you, Blue, for coming on the show and sharing all your mystical wonderfulness with us.
Thank you for having me. It's super fun.
It was fun. It was a fun conversation. I hope that all of you enjoyed it out there, and definitely check out Blue and her podcast and her website and book a little tarot reading. And
I like the marvelous Mad Madam Mim.
I love it. It's just so fun. It's got Blue in there too. So yeah, I love it. I'm digging it. So all right, so I give kisses to everybody on the way out. So do you want to help me give kisses? Here they come, everybody. We give kisses. Hey, don't forget to like and subscribe to Mystic Witch Podcast. Please do that and help her to get more ratings and more people knowing about what she does. And of course, please, please, please like and subscribe to Soul Nectar Show and help me to get the message out to more people and reach those skeptics. Reach the skeptics. Yay, we love skeptics. Okay, so here are your kisses.
Love it.
Yay! We'll see you next time on Soul Nectar Show, everybody. Bye for now. To dive in deeper to nourishing conversation, visit soulnectar.show.
Soul Nectar Show. Awaken the show. Take a sip from the drip of nectar, from the source of who you are. Yeah.